to the Chronological Bible Journey, where we discover God's whole story one day at a time. I'm Noah, and I'm here today with Michael as we look on day 302 at the gospel account of the Last Supper. Let's go.
All right. No, I got some questions for you.
All right.
If you knew you were about to eat your last meal, you knew it would be your last one, what would you eat? Who would you eat it with? And how would you show them that you cared for them?
I would eat mashed potatoes.
Okay, love it.
All-time favorite meal. Is that a meal, mashed potatoes?
I don't think that's a meal in and of itself.
It's close enough. Now, if you put some bacon bits on there, you got all the food pyramid stuff in there.
Okay, I like that.
I would not eat it with you.
Okay. No.
Because you don't like mashed potatoes.
No, I do like mashed potatoes.
I would say thank you to whoever I was with.
Okay, so you would have mashed potatoes for your whole meal. You would eat with anyone other than me, and you would give them a heartfelt thank you.
That's it.
Okay, I'm looking.
You won't be there, so you can't.
I'm not going to be there, so I can't judge, right? Well, today in our reading, we began the Last Supper with Jesus. And thankfully, I don't think they had mashed potatoes, and he did a little bit more than saying thank you with his closest friends. But we see that he spent his last meal, and he spent it with his closest friends, the disciples, who he had invested his entire last 3 years with. And I remember going, man, it would be so great to know, what did they eat at this? But then I remembered, this was the Passover meal.
Yeah.
The people ate often the same thing or similar things throughout the years. It would include lamb or unleavened bread, which they called matzah, and bitter herbs. And it could also include eggs and vegetables and soup, all that kind of stuff. That's what they would be eating. And this would have been Jesus's last meal before his crucifixion. So it was an incredibly important night. So let's see, what did Jesus decide to do? What did he show his disciples? Read for us John 13, 4-7.
So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. When Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will."
So we're going to find out that Jesus had a lot to teach his disciples in this Last Supper. Like, we actually get a good recording of the things that he taught. But what does he want them to visualize later on when they're thinking back to this night? He wants them to remember that he got down on his hands and knees and washed their feet.
Yeah.
Like that's something that sticks in your head. But the question is, why is that so important? Why is that so groundbreaking that Jesus would do this? Well, in their society, they wore sandals pretty much everywhere they went, and they got dirty walking through those streets. Their dust, mud, animal remains, all of that kind of stuff was everywhere. And they didn't have anything to really cover their feet. And so when they would go into someone's home, the host would often provide a servant who would wash the feet of those people. Now, I have a feeling, just like today, the thought of touching someone else's feet back then, not something that most people would want to do. And so that was a role for the servant to do, not for the important people, the servant. But the host was not a part of this meal. They were doing this at someone else's house. There was no servant. The disciples knew that no one's feet had been washed, and no one volunteered to do it.
Yeah, they weren't going to do it.
And they were like, "Hey, no one's washed my feet, but I'm not going to offer to wash anyone else's feet."
Yeah.
So why would Jesus make this such a big deal? Well, we see in Luke 22, verse 24, it tells us, "Then they," meaning the disciples, "began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them." Yeah, serving people, not on their radar.
Yeah, that would put them at the bottom of the list in their view.
Yeah, and in the midst of their peers.
Mhm.
And when you're with your peers, you don't want to be the least of your peers. You want to be the greatest. And so we see that after spending 3 years with Jesus, they still believe that they are there to rule, not to serve. So Jesus had to give them a physical example of what he was going to be calling them to.
And we call this meal this time the Last Supper. Jesus knew that it was the Last Supper, but nobody else did.
Yeah.
Like the disciples thought this was just
another meal. They were
Just another
doing
time
what they've
together.
always done.
But a few verses before we read in John 13 a minute ago, it says, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave the world. So Jesus was being very intentional here and giving them this very important last picture of how they were to live.
Exactly. And so he wanted to teach them how they were to lead, but they needed a visual. Read for us Luke 22:25 through 27.
Jesus told them, in this world, the kings and great men lord it over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. But among you, it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. Who is more important, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? The one who sits at the table, of course, but not here, for I am among you as the one who serves.
So we can see that Jesus is completely flipping the world
Yeah.
system on its head.
What are you talking about, Jesus?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You're saying that the greatest person is the one who serves, not the one who is in the highest position? That is completely foreign. And let's be honest, it's still foreign to us today.
Yeah.
That is a difficult way to live, putting other people before yourselves. But Jesus here, he gives them this picture and he humbles himself in his stature, his attitude, and his actions. He was kneeling before the very people he created.
Yeah.
And serving them. And so when he went to the cross, that was him living out what he was just teaching. He was not saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, but I'm not going to do it. He was teaching them and then showing them, even more so than just washing their feet, I'm now going to be tortured and killed on your behalf.
Yeah. To die the death of a criminal.
Yeah. And so let's read Philippians 2:5 through 8, because this shows us what our attitude should be. And it says, you must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave, and he was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Noah, if I'm honest with myself, I fight this every day.
Sure.
To wake up and go, I am not to think of myself first, but I am to think of the people around me first. And then I'm to humble myself and serve them each and every day, no matter who they are. No matter what their position is, no matter what color their skin is, no matter how much money they make, no matter what part of the city they live in, no matter what their age is, I am to serve, because that is the attitude that Christ Jesus had. So I'm going to encourage you at home, if you struggle like me in this area, there's probably some areas in your life that when you think about it, you're like, someone else can do that. I'm too good for that. I'm too elevated for this. I'm just going to let them take care of it. Whatever that area is, I'm going to encourage you. You go take care of it. You put those people before yourself. And then do it over and over and over. Don't say anything about it, but just go and serve that person that you think that you shouldn't do it, but then still choose to do it anyway.
I'm so grateful that Jesus didn't just teach us how to live, but he showed us how to live in the way that he lived his life.
Yeah.
It's so helpful to have that example. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast. I hope you are challenged to have the same attitude that Jesus Christ had in humbling yourself, because when we humble ourselves, only then will the Lord lift us up and exalt us in that way. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.